See, cowboys don't swing on parks, but still compelling.
That you know of. Were you around in the 1800s?
My favorite guy is actually the guy in the background who goes, "Hell yeah!" Listen. Hell yeah!
As long as we get paid or you get shot, I'm happy.
We finally played Red Dead Redemption 2.
I thought the day would never come,
It
but we
has
did
come.
actually play it.
Yeah, we played for what, 2 hours, was it?
2 hours. There was a bit where like we had to toss a coin to decide who would go first, but we went to Rockstar. They were like, "Bam,
Enjoy it.
Here's the
Yeah.
game." So we got to play like a couple of missions. Like one was a main mission. I think both were main missions.
Yeah,
weren't
two
they?
of them were. So there's missions on either side, start and end of our demo. The first one
It
was
was bookending.
Yeah, bookending. So the first one they actually played through, and then the last one you played through.
There's a reason that they opened it by them playing it.
Yeah.
And that's because otherwise, like, if we'd gone in and done a mission with no prior context and no grasp of the controls, would have absolutely biffed
Yeah.
it, which is exactly what you did.
Exactly what I did. So like the opening mission, without spoiling too much of it, I'm very conscious about saying too much about this game, given how many people are excited for it. But like, it's a robbery of sorts. So you're doing something. You know, you're robbing a gang.
You're being a baddie.
You're being a bad guy. You want to be a cowboy, baby. So then
I'm gonna close this.
the second part of it is like they dump you in the open world.
Yeah.
And you can immediately like see how overwhelming this game is from my first 5 minutes with the game, because it was a comedy of errors. Like I immediately it descended into absolute chaos for me.
The first thing you did, pretty much.
I just went to a camp. I just went to a nearby
Is that what
camp.
you did?
I
Is that
got
what
on
you
the horse.
did?
No, I got on the horse. So the horse was there. I got on the horse and I was like, oh, I'll go to this camp and that's nearby. And then I walk into the camp. What I didn't know is that camp belonged to the gang that we robbed in the previous mission. So I walk in and the guy's like, what are you doing here? And I didn't really pay too much mind, and I thought, oh, I'll talk to the guy and try and use the new conversation system where you hold L2. We're playing on a PS4 Pro, and you lock on, and then you've got the option to kind of like antagonize, greet, diffuse, that kind of thing. So I was like, I'll diffuse the situation. So I hit the diffuse button, and like, it doesn't really work when you've just robbed this gang. And so like, he immediately calls for backup.
Yeah.
Like, not like I need backup. It's like, boys, come and check this out. It's this guy. And then they quickly appear, and they are not messing about. They pull out their gun straight away and start firing. And within seconds, my horse is dead. I'm like, when I got shot a bunch of times, like Arthur's posture and gait changes.
Yeah.
So like, I'm limping now, and like, running is more difficult.
Yeah.
Stamina is not as good.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of a road, like I get far enough, and I was like, so we thought, oh, we'll go to a local town and like clean up and stuff.
I mean, bearing in mind, you are covered in blood.
Yeah.
Arthur's got a black eye now because they were saying that like there's a lot more brawling and fist fighting, so they're mushing up people's faces all over the shop. So you had like this stonking black eye, covered in blood.
So like this guy
wander into a town.
Yeah, well, there was a guy who came along on a horse, and I like tried to flag him down, and he was like, "Is that your blood?" Nope. And he just carries on like riding. So I did the evil thing, which is shot him off his horse.
Take it easy. Do what you want. I don't care.
And tried to.
Was that the one where you had a witness and you just basically
That was the other one.
The escalation.
So like,
on it was
I shot that guy
incredible.
off the horse, and I got on his horse, and I was riding, and there's a guy who comes by with a carriage, and I thought I'll do that thing where I pull up nearby and just go ha, and tip of the hat. I pull up nearby. I must have pressed the wrong button because like I blinked, and within seconds I had leaped onto his carriage, and I'm trying to wrestle the reins of the horse away from him. This guy pistol whips me, pushes me off the carriage. In the distance, a lawman sees it all happen and then immediately calls his friends, and like, I'm being hunted. There's a wanted level out on me. And then I fell off a cliff.
You fell off a cliff. So the thing that I, like in my time with the demo, is like the thing that I really enjoyed is that just, I think the thing with like Rockstar Worlds before and like with Red Dead Redemption before, it was very much like the world existed, you existed, you didn't really have that much of an impact on what was happening around you and like what was happening directly to you. With Red Dead 2, I felt like every single thing I was doing was building and the world was reacting to me in a very specific way. So like when you went to, so after the bit where you're all covered in blood, you managed to escape from the craziness that you admittedly you did cause. You went to this hotel, and the guy who was running it was like, "Oh, not you again, please! Like, I don't need this today, please." And like you, as Arthur, because you control how you interact with him, you say, "Look, I just want to have a bath."
Yeah.
And it's like this really cool. It's kind of like. It is just like role playing in a way, and I really enjoyed it because it felt like it was my Arthur Morgan doing what he was like. I was playing the role that I wanted him to play, and all the characters were reacting to me in a good way.
Now shoo, please. I'm waiting for someone interesting to turn up.
It's only when you play this game that you realize how much more there was to explore in open worlds. Like Rockstar are the best in the world at this stuff. Like very few people are going to argue against that. They create the most compelling, believable, like interesting open worlds. But when you play this, you realize how, I'm not saying like GTA 5 was bad, but like you realize how almost like, how that was a facade and how like very kind of, not fake, but like it didn't feel real. This feels like it's, like you feel like an invisible tourist in those games where you walk around and until you do something outrageous or until you interact with the world doesn't react to you. Like if you punch someone, some people around you will go, "Oh," and then carry on walking. This doesn't feel like that. It feels like you can just stand still in just a random area and just there's connections to the world, every piece of the world around you, and things can just naturally happen. And that's the kind of thing where like if you're standing in the middle of a pathway and you're covered in blood, people aren't gonna ignore you until like you walk up and punch them. They'll see you and some of them will flee, some of them will comment like, "Oh, that's really creepy."
Like, what's up with you?
Yeah, and like the way you kind of move around the world, it feels like there's like invisible like strings attached to everything and like you're just walking around and it's all being pulled and changing different parts of the world. It felt very, very overwhelming, and like the systems like we can talk about now, it's one of those experiences where I felt bad at the game because there was so much to understand and so much to kind of internalize that we hadn't done yet. And
I think that's inherently the problem of like not playing the beginning because obviously you get tutorialized and you get walked through, but then like being put in that world, and the thing that I really enjoyed about it was that you could, once you got your head around how everything worked, because in previous Rockstar games, like there is a control scheme that you become inherently like very familiar with over, 20 odd years of playing Rockstar games, is that you know that like to get in or out of a vehicle or get in, like it's triangle, like you know that, it's kind of stuff like that. But there are so many more layers to it, and there's so much more like in-depth stuff. Like it's not just like when you're playing as Arthur, you stand still, right? And it's not just your character standing still doing nothing. You can like fiddle with your gun. You can do a couple of gun tricks. You can like fan the hammer. You can like get a pair of binoculars out and just take a look. Oh, and you can do that in first person if you want to. Like the whole game is playable in first person. Like surprise, which is super cool. And it's just like. It adds so many more layers to everything from the very beginning. But once you kind of appreciate the minutiae of stuff, like your weapons getting dirty, you can go wash off in a river, you can go take your horse to the river and like literally lead him to go to the river and have a drink. And it's like, once you get used to the fact that everything you do has a consequence and everything you do like matters, it just kind of feels like this is open world games have been. It feels
like it does feel like an evolutionary step. The world is just so reactive to you that this is the kind of thing that has been missing until this point. Like we've been able to, like we said, create these worlds. But like it's the moments inside of it and like filling every single part of it so it feels a little more believable. That kind of has been missing, and the way the world reacts to Arthur and everything that you do is now really, really like ratcheted up. It feels quite overwhelming at times. So you like everything to be constantly aware of everything. The need to be constantly aware of your actions are going to have consequences immediately and also down the line because of like the honor system. Oh yeah, like sometimes they were saying that you can run into an NPC and you can have a weird interaction with him, like, you know, if you're covered in blood or something, and he might, you know, comment on it. He might remember you later on down the line, like because you've had that interaction with him already. And like nowhere, I think, is it more apparent
the reactionary stuff is in the camp. It's like you get to the camp and it's like a living, breathing camp. Like everyone is just there hanging about, like having their own conversations all the time. That's how you can pick up new missions if you wanted to, or you can just sit by the campfire. And like one of the best moments I think from our demo is that I love Red Dead Redemption a lot. Like, and John Marston as a character I think was brilliant. I think he was like a really flawed but ultimately quite relatable character in that he was very loyal and he was very just an incredible character to latch onto. And so I was really like, when they announced that this was a prequel and you wouldn't be playing as John, I was a bit like, oh, come on, because John was so great. But now playing as Arthur, you get to see John through a different lens and you get to see a different version of John. And when you're in the camp, you can just like, if you wanted to, you can go up and talk to him and just like find out how he's been going and what he's been doing. And
it opens up and it adds texture to the character of John. Like we should be talking about Arthur because Arthur is he's the main character. And like there's some really interesting dynamics already that we saw. Like Dutch is the leader, but he seems to be very much a bit of a poser. Like he's got these highfalutin ideas. He's like the philosopher cowboy who's got these grand schemes and plans, but they're nothing without Arthur. So that like Arthur's really important. But it's interesting that because when you play as him, you get a new perspective on John as well. Because he's very much quite flawed and he's becoming the man that we know later on. Like we meet him and he's a bit banged up, he's out of action. Abigail is absolutely giving him so much grief. And like, it's like, oh, this is a really interesting take on seeing that character. So like, I'm kind of on board with him not being the main character now. And they've said like you won't do a character switching thing at any point. So I'm really excited to see more of that, of John Marston and also the other gang members. There's a whole bunch of them around, like Bill's around.
Capture Gil,
and like you have a really weird relationship with him as well. There's things like they comment like he doesn't quite trust you or he clearly is keeping you at arm's length. So there's like really interesting dynamics and it's like you said, when you go to that camp, the game isn't waiting for you. It's not, the world isn't waiting for you. You're not the kind of like the center of attention for everyone. It's just happening. It just feels like you've walked into something like mid-conversation, mid, you know, an event, and you can come and go as you please, and the world will continue to exist. And that's something that people have talked about in a lot of games before, like, oh, this is a world that feels living and breathing, and without you, with or without you, it will carry on, etc., etc. But this is the first time I've actually believe it, just because like the reactivity of everything around you and kind of that element of it, this camp feels really, really alive, and that is incredibly exciting.
I keep coming back to it, but like the minutiae of things is like when Arthur, like when he rents a room, for example, to stay for the night, like he can look at himself in the mirror. And so they were saying, I think in like that first gameplay reveal trailer, they were like, everything on your horse is like rendered and like physically connected to your horse. And it's the same with all his clothes, and you can like fully customize how you look and things, and you can shave if you want to, do your own hair. And then there's just a time where there's a moment of reprieve, I guess, where Arthur's just like, hold L2 and you look at yourself in the mirror, and he just like comments on himself. And he's like, there's a bit where he looks in the mirror and he goes, yeah, that's why they all leave you. And it's like, wow, okay.
So like you hold the button down and it's like press right on the D-pad, I think it was, and he'll deliver one line, and then I kept pressing it, and it started to chain the lines together, so it sounded like one kind of like diatribe about himself. The minutiae again, like if you get a haircut, you can't. It's not that like that Rockstar or any open world customization game thing where you got a haircut and you're like, I don't like it, and then you scroll down and all the hair is back and you can change. If you want to change that haircut, you got to wait for it to grow back. And if it's like messy and you're slightly long, you can go to town and buy a pomade and style it. There's stuff like that. The weapons are like super like degradable.
But like, I think part of it must come from the fact that it's playable in first person now. They want that extra level of detail. So like, you can just like take a look at your gun and you can see dirt building up on it. And like, they were saying that like, if you take it through a river or if it gets wet, like it'll rust. And it's just like extra layers. But at the same time, obviously we didn't spend that much time with it. I'd be interested to know how, like what the balance is like with that, because that is a lot going on. And also you have cores. So you've got like health, you've got stamina, you've got your dead eye. You have more And like, oh yeah, things like level up, like your stamina level up, sort of like how they did in GTA, by running more, your stamina increases and you get better and you can increase your abilities that way. But like these cores that you can, like if you rest, for example, or if you take a tonic or something, you can increase them. So there's that to take into account. Oh, like if you get cold, you'll move differently, you'll move slower. Like there's a lot to take on board. And I'm not worried because I love Red Dead Redemption and what we play, but like I'd be interested to see how much that you're going to have to consciously be on top of all the time.
I mean, they talked about managing the camp, right? Where it was like, the camp, you're required to kind of upkeep it to a certain extent.
You can take food, you can take pelts to
but
them.
like, it's never going to be like critical mission failure. Camp is about to fall apart.
A Metal Gear Survive, oh, game over.
And I'm hoping that it's similar to that. I mean, there is a survivalist element to this game. Like it shows you, we went into one screen and it was showing us like our weight. So you can gain weight and lose weight, similar to San Andreas, and like you can be fat Arthur if you want, but it's showing us stats on like stamina and percentages and time as well, like how long before it starts to degrade in a noticeable way, and even things like the kind of weapon degradation. They were like, at some point the game will actually tell you need to fix this.
Right.
But until that point, the way you figure it out is you'll feel the gun start to behave differently. Like shots won't be as good because that's the way the game wants to tell you. It'll be slower. And like things like the rifles, for example, you need to fire and then cock and then fire. So like that will become more difficult because of the degradation. So it's trying to kind of make it natural, the way it confers information to you, but it also will do that thing where it's like, hey, you need to actually pay attention to this now.
They'll probably hang you, buddy.
You coming, buddy?
The UI is super clean.
And it's like, it's not there, really.
Yeah, it's
like
just the map.
The only thing that's there is the mini-map in the bottom left. Sometimes your core pops up like if you're taking a ton of damage or if you're on your horse and it's like running low on stamina, but like it's not there all the time. And if you want to see it, you just like tap down on the D-pad and then it gives you like a big sort of info blast about what's going on.
Yeah.
When I first got the reins of the game after you, the first thing I did was I just went to the top of a hill and just sort of like looked out because like Red Dead was 2010 and at the time it was a great looking game, and like you play it now on Xbox One, it looks great, but obviously it's aged like compared to what we've seen in games like The Witcher, like these beautiful landscapes and stuff. And Red Dead 2, it was like, it reminded me of why I love the original game. This is a world that I want to lose myself in, and the fact that it's so beautiful just lends itself to that.
Yeah, so like when we started, we were in like just this open field. We'd come down from mountains. We could see the mountains that we were in before, and just a rainstorm appeared out of nowhere, and just kind of, they were supposed to show us how the gunplay works, but because of the rainstorm, all the birds had like flown away, and the animals were like kind of taking shelter, so there was nothing around to shoot. And like one of the really cool things is like you're riding, and Arthur's, you can see his clothing is just drenched, waterlogged, and he's kind of like, if you turn into the wind where the rain is coming from, he'll like dip his head and like hold the hat to kind of shield his eyes as he's riding. And you did the hunting as well, and that was
so
kind of
has like a survival instinct-y type thing where you can like silently take out animals, because there's more like I don't want to say that it's a huge focus on stealth and stuff, but you can like
you can stealth
stuff. You have a bow and arrow now, and you can use that survival instinct, and you can use Deadeye now to sort of like, if you want to make a clean kill so that you can get more money for the pelt, for example, and then you can use that to give more to your like the folks at camp, like, because everything leads into everything else, right? But you can use that, and coupled with your survival instinct, like you can take a shot at an animal and then you can sort of see its blood trail and track it. You can either see that like the blood on the ground, or you can like trigger this survival instinct type thing. And
at higher levels, stuff like Deadeye, once it's improved, it will show you things like critical spots where if you hit it, you get a really clean instant kill.
There's a kill cam now, like a bloody like slow-mo kill cam.
Yeah, so it will like dynamically pick a good shot to show you when it's important. everything is like feeding into other parts of the game, and like we did a few missions here and there.
We saw a stranger mission.
We saw a mysterious stranger mission, which was like we went into a bar and there was like this guy who was just fully passed out and drunk, and another guy who's trying to get information out of him. It turns out the guy who's trying to get information is writing a book about this gunslinger who's supposed to be a legendary gunslinger. But he's just not having it because he's passed out.
Absolutely.
So this guy's like, I need to write this gunslinger book. Can you find these other legendary gunslingers and take a picture of them? If they put up any fight, just kill them. So effectively, it's like, here's an assassin mission, take out these legendary gunslingers. And it was a multi-part mission, which means we couldn't actually do it in time. Yeah. So we kind of like, but those mysterious stranger missions are around, like the weird parts of the Red Dead world are still going to be there. Yeah. I would be shocked if there's not like some sort of Westworld reference or a robot reference, given the whole Bigfoot Sasquatch thing that happened with the last game.
This is God's own country, and I feel I'm in purgatory.
I think it's one of those, like, I will play this for probably a long time. I feel confident about it now. It's been so long, and I was starting to get worried about it, but I mean, like, my worry was misplaced, it seems, from what we've played so far.
Man, like 8+ years this game's been in development, and like, Red Dead is one of my favorite games, and so coming out of this, I feel good. Feels good, man.
Yeah.
And like, we're sorry, because this video we know has gone on, but you can kind of tell from what, you know, our experience with 2 hours of the game, there is so much more to talk about.
There's a lot, there's still stuff that we haven't covered because we don't understand
haven't even talked about the horses pooping everywhere.
Yeah, horses can poop.
Horses can do dressage.
Dressage if you're bonded enough with it. You know what? I wanna be a cowboy, baby. I want to be a cowboy.